And we're live.
Cool. Welcome to another Rust and WebAssembly meeting. So starting off with the agenda, we have RFC Triage, and there's a new RFC. This is about how to represent inheritance in Wasm bindgen, because so much of the web uses inheritance, like HTML anchor element inherits from HTML element, inherits from, I think, normal element, which inherits from node, which inherits from event target, which inherits from object, I think. But like basically, like you're never dealing with the actual thing. You're always talking about base classes and stuff. And so it's like we need to be able to also talk about this stuff in Wasm bindgen and from Rust, just to be able to use all these APIs. So please read that and comment if you have opinions about that.
Do we think we want to tweet this out? Or has it been tweeted out and I missed it somehow?
It has not been tweeted out, but that is a good point. I will add a to-do item.
Well, I was going to say one thing that I think we've found is, well, at least it's a pattern I see in Rust RFCs, is it might be useful for some of us as team members to write our comments to kind of like get the conversation going and then tweet it. So maybe aim to get some comments in today and then tweet it tomorrow. Because sometimes when people start commenting, they have, it's like difficult to know exactly what to chat about. So it can give people more to say if there's kind of already a combo happening. So it's impressive that we already have 2 comments that happened like within the 3 hours you posted it.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's also an issue on Wasm bindgen about how to do this. And so I wrote that up and then linked it there. I think that's
nice.
How I found it. Cool. All right. So moving along, for those who don't know, leading up to the big Rust 2018 edition release, there's going to be a series of previews, 2 previews, and then a beta. Can you confirm that, Ashley? Yeah?
I believe so.
We've already had 1 preview, so we have 1 more preview left, and then we have a release candidate, and then we have the actual thing.
Okay. So yeah, like, I don't know, since we're not doing that much stuff actually in Rust C, we're a little bit less affected than, maybe some other groups are. But the second preview ships in early August. We have a tracking dashboard, and then basically everything that we want to ship with Rust 2018. We have this new blocking Rust 2018 label, and the link in the agenda will show you all of these issues labeled this across the whole Rust Wasm organization. So I think we have like 11 things right now. Yeah, so if you think there's something that needs to ship for Rust 2018 and not afterwards, make sure to hit it with that label, and that will bring it into the discussion and kind of the tracking and all of that. Ashley, do you want to talk about the 1.0 question?
Sure. I have a couple comments just more on the preview stuff. So one of the things that I know is happening is they're kicking off a newsletter to help talk about the preview and the work that's being done, and just the edition in general. And while this group doesn't have a ton of stuff that's in Rust C, so we're not super beholden to the deadlines, which is kind of awesome, we might consider trying to ride the marketing train they're kicking off with it. So I know in the newsletter they're advertising like good first issues or calls for collaborators. So we should just be sure. I assume that you're kind of already on that pitch, Jen, but just knowing that there's this kind of like marketing situation.
Cool. That's nice that you assume that.
Oh.
I'm not on top of that. This is actually the first I've heard of the newsletter.
Oh, okay, cool. So I'm on the hook for some other stuff in the edition. So Central, who is organizing this, spoke to me at length yesterday about all of this. And he was asking me about some of my other projects and if there was good first issues. And I was like, not yet. But for us, there definitely is. So if you want, I can ping him or you can ping him. But But I think there's like a great opportunity for us to get a little bit more of attention or eyes on this stuff.
Okay.
Which I know can always be positive.
The same way that, so like I only found out like a month ago that GitHub lets you search issues like across a whole organization, but like I'm in love with it now.
I basically just figured it out today when you suggested that you had a link that would do that. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I guess that's possible.
Yeah, so I've been putting in the This Week in Rust and WebAssembly issue that came out yesterday. There's links to all of the help wanted issues across the whole organization and all of the good first issues. So I think, is it good enough to just hand them those links and say,
yeah,
hey,
absolutely,
include these in the newsletter?
Yeah. You can do that or I can do that. Either one, doesn't matter. But I'm sure he'd be happy because he's looking for content right now, I think. So any content is good.
If I can give you the URL, or like I'm sure you could figure out how to make the URL yourself as well, but I've never really interacted with this person before, so
sure. I'll also do an intro between you two at some point because y'all should know each other.
Cool.
But happy to take care of that for this week.
Thanks. Okay, 1.0 question now.
Yeah, okay, so the 1.0 question. So when Nick pinged me yesterday about blocking for 2018, I was trying to think about, like, what do we want the state of this collection of tools to be when we ship? And so inevitably there's the question if what we're trying to deliver is like a mature, like, developer experience, the question of 1.0s inevitably comes up. And I know that people have all sorts of opinions about this. And I know that the question of a 1.0 for Wasm BindGen is significantly more complicated than one for Wasm Pack. But I wanted to get folks' sense of how important of a signifier is a 1.0, and do we think that we could 1.0 Wasm Pack before Wasm BindGen, given that Wasm BindGen is a critical portion of Wasm Pack? Mostly just open questions. I do not have any strong feelings on this, but it seemed like a good topic to discuss.
At least for me, I do see the Wasm Pack and BindGen stories being very separate here, so I think it'd be totally fine to do that. And I know I personally would prefer that in the sense that the Wasm BindGen stuff is in theory, like, to me it feels 1.0 when it includes ++, it includes the languages, we have like a semi-more spec. Now, I think in the meantime, it's the exact same stability you have. It's just it will change in the future once we actually figure that stuff out. But that's all like internal details anyway that no one actually has to care about. So in that sense, I do think though we should strive for a 1.0 feeling aspect of Wasm Pack, where like the idea of Wasm Pack is you're not fiddling with all the Wasm BindGen pieces. It just takes care of everything. You never accidentally use a debug build on a release mode, stuff like that. And so in that sense, I would see that as pretty important. It's pretty critical for the working group as a whole. Just like that's very central to our experience, is having a really good experience using Wasm Pack to do everything. So at least that would be my thoughts, for saying that we can just forget about Wasm BindGen and 1.0, but we should be striving for a Wasm Pack 1.0, and at least in terms of feeling, maybe not literal number on it itself.
Totally. I think I have like the exact same vibe, and at least from working on it, there's like one big like breaking interface change that I want to get done like very soon. But I think that by the edition, which is like, I think slated for like October 12th now at this point, if I'm recalling correctly.
Mid-October, yeah, sometime around there.
Something like that. Anyways, I think that we could have an interface that we consider extremely stable. The only breaking change I see coming down the pipeline in the future is just that NPM dependency stuff. And that would be like, because currently right now in Wasm BindGen, there's something landed that I think we're inevitably going to end up changing, but I haven't actually implemented it in Wasm Pack, so that wouldn't be breaking. But yeah, I think also, and I'm curious what other people's feels are on this. Maybe this is just my personal experience, but like if we 1.0 Wasm Pack and then like after 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year, we realize we need to do breaking changes or something, like a 2.0 for like a tool is maybe less of a huge problem, because there's probably not as many like consumers. Like it's only, I guess we'd have to keep an eye out for people who are trying to use Wasm Pack in their like build process, and like depending on the API that way. But otherwise, it's usually people just typing the stuff, which is easier to morph. I don't know what people think on that.
I think if people are using Wasm Pack in their build process, they should be using versioned URL downloads or cargo whatever too. So I think I get the same sense that like it's not a huge deal to do like a 1.0 then a 2.0 for something like Wasm Pack.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not entirely that in the sense that like cargo like frees us from worrying about that sort of breakage where like my build randomly broke because I forgot to check in a log file or something like that. But there still is very to me it depends on the degree of breakage where it's like if literally nothing works from before now, then I think we probably don't want to call it 1.0. But if like little things were tweaked and there's like a major new feature which required breakage, then like that's totally fine. So and, like it's kind of the feeling of like, because it's not just that people will, like things will not break if they're actually versioned correctly and using like the right downloads and all that. It's more of that we're providing a very strong message for you do need to upgrade, you do need to change, and like we as a community are going to start using the new thing now and we're going to stop using the old thing. And so then it's, if we're requiring everyone to make the transition, how smooth is it? How hard is it going to be?
Yeah, I totally agree about the upgrade path and like huge breaking changes. Like just for an example, the breaking change I'm thinking about right now is like in the OG days of Wasm Pack, when we had kind of a smaller scope for it, I kind of jammed everything in the init command. And like now the init command does like 5,000 things and it like really doesn't need to. So I'm going to break out functionality into init and build. But I can't imagine too many more of things like that happening. But I would see it's primarily like growing with Wasm Bindgen, just like adding functionality instead of breaking earlier functionality. But also trying to tell the future is a really dangerous pursuit. So cool. Well, I think kind of based on this conversation, I am going to file an issue for a Wasm Pack 1.0. And we'll see how it goes. We clearly shouldn't block on it, but I think it would be awesome if we could get that done.
Yeah.
And I'm also like just a bigger fan of, 1.0 so that there are some guarantees. And then if in the future we have to do a 2.0, keeping the upgrade path really comfy. So.
Yeah, this reminds me of actually one other point, which is that I think almost more important than any actual changes to Wasm Pack itself for Wasm Pack feeling 1.0 is the integration into all of our tutorials and the Rust and WebAssembly book and all of that. And so I don't know if anyone looked at the actual blocking Rust 2018 issues, but there's a couple in the book related to Wasm Pack that I marked blocking. Yeah.
Cool.
That's really important.
For what it's worth, one of the we have the next release, which is 05, is going to do that init build split, and then it was my goal to kind of turn towards the doc stuff because I haven't touched any of those docs, but I could definitely help do that.
Yeah.
So, but I want to get the refactor done first. Sarah, do you happen to have any updates on Nano's work on the tutorial?
I don't. We actually haven't talked in a second.
Got it.
I'm working on my branch. I'm gonna have some time tomorrow afternoon to get done with my agenda items. Sorry.
No, it's totally cool. No apologies. I'll circle up with Alice, also Nano. Sorry, I just realized I'm using multiple names for one person. To see where her work on the tutorial is, because I've also been kind of holding off touching it because I know she's doing a really big refactor, and so merge conflicts. Trying to avoid that, but I'll circle up with her hopefully today, and make sure that we can get that sorted.
Cool. All right, should we dive into some quick 2018 goals updates?
Well, actually, I realized it's not on the agenda, but I am kind of curious. We've been talking about like 1.0 and stability. I'd love to hear from Sven if you think, I mean, 1.0 is not really how you'd label it, but do you think like bundlers support stabilizing in any of the bundlers is like on the roadmap, or thoughts around that?
Um, I mean, so the Webpack integration is quite stable yet. But I mean, I don't feel like we should label it 1.0, even if it's stable, because it's independent anyway.
Yeah. I guess what I mostly meant to say is we're marking stuff as blocking on 2018 in the stuff that's in our repo that we can control. But like the bundler story is equally important, and I don't know if we have a great sense of how we're tracking that. I don't know, Fitzjan, if you had thoughts, because they're not really in the repo, so we can't super tag them or whatever.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So the integration itself is pretty stable yet. I'm still working. I mean, I will explain this later, but we should be able to label 1.0 all the tooling around the bundlers, like a Wasm Bindgen plugin, or even the Rust plugin that runs the optimization phase, and so on.
Cool.
All right. Okay, did anyone have anything else to talk about 1.0 plugin stuff? All right, let's jump into goal updates. So Wasm Bindgen stuff, we landed the WebSys crate, the skeleton of it. So this is the crate that is mechanically generated from WebIDL. And there's a ton of issues of like enabling generation of different WebIDL interfaces, because right now we're opting into generating bindings for certain interfaces, and basically there's no support there. It's very thin. So there's big checklist issues and lots of ways for people to help. But I think we're making nice progress. Anything else to add about that, Alex? No. Okay. Wasm Pack stuff, Ashley?
I was muted. I feel behind this week, but I'm hoping that by the rest of today and tomorrow it should be going pretty quick. So.
Okay. Do you need like some extra help on issues or anything, or
one thing that would help make us able to move a little faster is because of some funkiness in assert CLI, which has apparently changed and is like way better now. We like could really use someone who really wants to write integration tests, because right now I'm like moving a lot more cautiously because I don't completely trust our test suite. And so that's slowing me down a little bit. So if you happen to know somebody who loves doing testing, it'd be great. I know that Gatosi was working on it, but now he's going to be gone for like 2 weeks. So I think the testing really needs to land for 05. But there was like a small regression, and so I have to do a patch release today, which sucks. And so yeah, that's the one thing that I think would be really beneficial for all of the blocking 2018 stuff. Like, there's already PRs for basically all of them, and so it's really just a matter of me reviewing them and like being able to trust that they're not breaking stuff. And so the testing situation is what's making me a little cautious at the moment. Okay. It could move a lot faster if it was better.
I think I might have some cycles coming up, so I can try and help with that.
That would rule. Thank you.
Yeah.
So additionally, the configuration stuff that I know you care a lot about might also, like I might give you that and then I'll do the testing.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
we can talk about it later.
Yeah. Anything else? No? Okay. Sven, bundlers?
Yeah. So as I said, the integration itself in Webpack is pretty stable. Ideally, I would like to add more integration into Parcel and Rollup. And I feel like a bit behind because I would like to have the Rust plugin a bit more, to have a bit more functionalities it has now. And I haven't had the time to dig into making Wasm Pack plugin for Webpack yet. But that would be super cool, I think.
What about a Wasm Pack plugin for Webpack?
So Wasm Pack, do you mean Wasm or Wasm Pack?
Wasm Pack. So my understanding was that the way that we were moving was that Wasm Pack would kind of like orchestrate all of the Rust side of the build, and then it would produce this final Wasm that Webpack would then hand off to Webpack, or like Webpack would invoke Wasm Pack to get that, and then like fit into the larger bundler and the dev server and stuff like that. And from that perspective, I think that a Wasm Pack plugin would be the priority, and these other things could kind of be left to Wasm Pack itself.
Yeah, I mean, just to expand a little bit on that, I think our goal is that Wasm Pack, especially with this kind of like 3 build modes thing that we're coming up with, is like the convention path. And then like if you really have specific customizable stuff that you like really want to do on your own, then you can invoke Wasm Bindgen on your own. But for the most part, the goal is like Wasm Pack just wraps Wasm Bindgen and gives you like 3 different sets of like kind of optimized configurations so that you don't have to like think about all the knobs and stuff there, because there's like a fair amount of configuration required, and we don't want to make people do that unless they desperately want to.
Yeah, sure. And okay, so that makes sense. Does it also include like Wasm Snip and Wasm Optimize?
Yeah, so there are PRs open for that right now, and that's expected to land in 05, which is the next release, or at the very latest, the release after that, both of which should be coming pretty quick. Like the PRs are literally already open, and mostly dependent on us kind of speccing out a configuration thing to add to Cargo Toml.
Okay, I see. So yeah, so I will try to look into that if I have the chance to do so. Cool.
Documentation. Sarah, do you want to take over documentation for this meeting since Michael's gone? Oh, I think you're muted.
Oh,
you're back.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't actually have the agenda up here. Let me get that 1 sec. Sorry.
I'll dump it in the Rust Wasm channel again if you're in there.
Wait, I have it on. It's on box.com, right? No. Dropbox?
It's on paper.dropbox.com.
Found it. Lovely.
Yeah, I've sent it in the chat as well.
I would say I DM'd it to you. Now you have 8 links.
Awesome. Okay, so today is the 12th. Yes, it is. Cool. Yeah. So I know that there's, I've got a couple of issues assigned to me. I believe Alice also has a couple of documentation issues assigned to her. I went through, I think, one more round with the contributing.markdown that I had proposed, and that's about the status as far as I've heard from it. I'm gonna get back to Alice maybe at some point in the next couple of days to find out if she's made any progress on the stuff that she's working on. But my sense from the last time that I talked to her was that she's focused on that refactor of the book tutorial right now.
Cool. Okay. Deal is not here. Do you have an update, Ashley?
On the website? So Sindil sent me a screen cap of some of the work that he's done so far, but it hasn't been filed as a PR yet. One thing that I think is very interesting is that he lists a lot of numbers in the page, and I'm intrigued by the idea, but I'm worried just because they definitely look like benchmarks, and post our last conversation about benchmarks, we don't actually have any. So I would definitely want to hesitate on publishing any numbers on that page if we can't like agree that we're going to basically maintain a benchmark that's associated to. So it might be useful. I'm hoping that he posted that as a PR, and I'll work with him on that. But if there are numbers that we do have that we want to share, I don't know, I'm thinking of your source maps thing, PitchGen, that like is kind of, that's like pretty good. But yeah, I think he might benefit from us also sending him some of the content that we want to be sure to showcase. So if you have anything, and I would share it with him just to make sure that we know that that's going to be on there. So the first two stages don't really involve review with the team, but I think we could probably help him out by sending more content.
Okay. All right. Debugging.
Oh, wait, sorry. And the last thing is, I know that there's like videos of people who have done talks and stuff, particularly FitzGen. I know that Mozilla thing, we should send those links. I don't know where
my internet connection's getting a bit VoIP, so I didn't catch that.
It was mostly just if you know where the video from that all hands talk lives. I know. I just know it exists. I have no idea where. But that would probably be like a really useful like artifact for the page. At least for now, until we do more.
Yeah, so I didn't catch that again. I'm sorry, but I think maybe we can just move along and try not to block on me. If I am no longer, you can't understand what I'm saying, then please someone else take over the meeting.
Yeah, I'll cover you. Though I'll say, like, at least from my end, you sound perfect. I would never have known that you actually have any connectivity problems. So maybe it's just you're down, not you're up.
Yeah, I just turned off the video, and then I don't know, it's kind of coming in and out. But yeah, so the rest of the goals I think are still on track. So that's debugging and the template. The template has some more issues we need to finish before Rust 2018. Mostly again related to integrating Wasm Pack, but it should be pretty straightforward, I think.
I can give a small update on cargo generate. So my goal was to publish that last week, but there's been there was a hilarious miscommunication between me and Pascal, and a missing exclamation point caused all sorts of shenanigans. But ideally, by tomorrow morning, that will be published, and so we can start setting the template up so that it can be used with cargo generate. Which I think will be cool. And I think there's still the question that I have with the template, in that, at least for Wasm Pack, the goal of Wasm Pack is that the repo represents a library, not a website. And so the fun thing about a template for Wasm Pack is it's actually two templates. One is a library and one is the consuming application. And so I'm interested to see exactly how we maybe want to do that, because at least based on what I can tell, the current template has both in one. So I don't know. I don't know what people's thoughts are there, but that's like in my brain, at least the blocker. Because like creating a template for Wasm Pack for creating a library is like very simple, and it includes almost all of the stuff that is in the current Wasm Pack template. The only thing that it doesn't include is all of the Webpack stuff, because the Webpack stuff would live in the consuming application template. I don't know what our thoughts are on this. Maybe this is me just being JavaScript and liking tiny things that are separated.
Yeah.
So I actually agree, and I think we talked about that 2 weeks ago or something like that. And as far as I remember, we talked about having two templates, one that aims for a library and one that does only web stuff, where in the web stuff you only have Webpack, and in the library you don't have any JS dependencies. So I have one question. Would the cargo generates only one template, or could we have the two templates?
So the 0.1 release of Cargo Generate is like incredibly bare bones. All it does is take a single URL to a Git repository. That being said, like I guess it's possible that we could have it pull down both. I'd want to like talk more about exactly what that workflow is. I think in my head right now, the way I would imagine it is I want to create a Wasm library. So I run cargo generate and use the like Wasm Pack lib template, and I make my library, I publish it, and then I use cargo generate to generate a Wasm Pack app. And then go from there. I don't know if having cargo generate create two projects for you at the same time makes sense, but I also do not have strong feelings on this, and I'm super open to like people's thoughts. The current thing just clones down one repo and does basic substitutions across any of the files you want it to do substitutions on.
I maybe have a small suggestion. So let's say you want to do a library, so you use the cargo gen thing. And if you want to build a web application, you probably also have like npm, npx installed locally. So you could use the npm create, I think, or npx create. I don't remember the name. But you could maybe separate both in two separated tools.
Yeah, I actually think it makes a lot of sense to make the Wasm Pack app template like an npm template and not a cargo template. I think that makes a ton of sense, because in theory, a Wasm Pack app should not need to know Rust at all. So yeah, that's a super great idea. And I also forget the keyword, but I think it might be create, because it was based on create React app, I think. But yeah, I can investigate that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a good suggestion. Super good call. So maybe I haven't given it enough time, but FitzGen, are you still with us? All right. All right. For the time being, I'm going to assume that his internet connection has taken him hostage, and I guess we can keep moving on. So for the status updates, we were talking about templates. Debugging said it was okay. I wanted to mention that I went to the Wasm community group meeting for the first time. It's under the W3C. And for the first time, apparently in W3C history, they are considering forming a sub-team of the working group. And that sub-team is about debugging. So given the Rust Wasm interest in debugging, I have not worked terribly closely on the debugging stories, so I'm probably not a good representative for that. But it might be useful to have someone from this group join that, maybe FitzGen, maybe someone else. But the community group is open to join. Like, you literally just go to the W3 website and say, like, add me. But then in order to get invited to the meetings, you have to like send an email to some people. It's a little confusing. So if anyone's interested, feel free to message me and I can help walk you through it. But I do think it would be great to have representation on this debugging subgroup. And it's currently being proposed in an RFC right now, and I'll post it in the notes.
Yeah. So I think Yuri is in it.
Yeah, Yuri is definitely in the community group. Who is in the subgroup is not 100% clear.
Yeah, I meant he is probably going to be in the debugging subgroup.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. I think it might be useful to have somebody even more involved in the Rust stuff, though. Also involved. Like, love Yuri.
I'm definitely going to be involved.
Oh, in the debugging group?
Oh God, my internet. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be involved in the debugging group. I have been involved in all the threads leading up to it, and commented on the pull request for the subcharter. I'm just waiting for it to actually be created before diving into their meetings and stuff, because I'm not really interested in the larger community group meetings.
Yeah, I think barring any critical comments over the next week, it's going to get merged in a week, was the decision from the meeting yesterday.
Great, that's awesome to hear.
So the next two look like they're from you, Alex. So do you want to just, I guess the next three, you want to take it away?
Yeah, so, sure, this is a little bit beyond the status updates. This is kind of just like FYI style business, but there's a couple of stuff happening on the toolchain side of things in Rust itself. So there's the first two of their attributes that are currently reasons why Wasm Pack is nightly, but doesn't necessarily need to be. And so that's just heads up if anyone's curious to check those out. It's basically Wasm has two important namespaces, and Rust doesn't inherently have a way to do one of them. And then the other one is custom sections, just how we actually define that in Rust. Otherwise, not today's nightly, but tomorrow's nightly should have LLVM upgraded. And this is a really big thing for us, at least within the Wasm space, in the sense that we have a lot of features from LLD now. The main one being that you no longer have to use LTO to get small binaries by default. So this is something where if you type cargo -s release, everything will get GC'd appropriately is the terminology. But in any case, just keep an eye out for regressions or if anything funky looks going on. Like, that might be related to that. And otherwise, your Wasm binary, your build should be faster and your binary should be smaller as a result. So just look out and see what's going on there. But that's pretty much it.
Awesome. I'm trying to be like hesitant because I can't tell if FitzGen will come back or not. Cool.
Looks like it's kind of coming in and out.
Yeah, I know, it's like on and off. I'm so sorry.
If you can hear us, we heard some mumbling of you, but I think that,
yeah, sorry, I was just saying I have a terrible connection.
Stinks.
Please continue.
Yeah. Well, we've reached the official end of the agenda. I don't think I have any more. I don't have any more updates. Does anybody else have any stuff they want to talk about? Powin has an update that I can read out loud. I've been working on future signals and Dominator built on top of standard web, using them to create a Firefox extension. It's going to be great, and the frameworks are really solid, and the performance is great. Super cool, Powin. That sounds awesome. You should make sure to comment on the newsletter thread so that we can promote all that awesome work.
Yeah, related to the newsletter thread, would people find it useful if we had a label that you could apply to pull requests and things, and then we can add that to the template for the newsletter, and then just like look at all of the pull requests that have that label applied and like include them as news items.
I think that'd be super useful. I know that This Week in Rust does a whole bunch of shenanigans using labels, and it helps automate a ton of the content. I'll follow up with you, FitzGen, and type it out. But I don't know. My general vibe is like, yes, I think automating stuff using labels, as long as that's not the only thing we're doing, because some stuff won't fit with labels, I think it's a good idea. Anyone else have any vibes on that? Am I making sound?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Do either of you have a thought on the labels for the newsletter? No?
Seems fine.
Okay, cool. Sweet. All right. We have 11 minutes left. But perhaps we should just close early. Yeah, let's do that, and I'll circle up with FitzGen on the stuff that we missed, and I'll type it in the notes. That's like the appropriate place to put it, right? All right, cool. Oh, Sven, I just saw you unmuted. Do you have something to add?
No.
All right, cool. Thank you, everyone, and we'll talk on the internet.
Yep.
Bye.
Talk to you later. Bye.